Welcome to Soft Bites Podcast. Your life, your dentistry. We talk about ways to have more fun and meaning in one of the coolest and most rewarding professions in medicine. Conversations on how to bring awareness, create a healthy workplace, and provide emotional insights to make dentistry a fulfilling activity while making space for one's wonder, creativity, and freedom. Here are your hosts, Manuela and Jorge André.
Hello, Manuela.
Hello, Jorge André. How are you?
I'm fine. Just woke up. I think that people see my face will see that I still look a little bit asleep.
Today,
But
today it's early in the morning.
yeah, it's a good
I
time
think
to
it's the
record.
earliest actually that we recorded the podcast. We already did it in the morning, but I
Yes.
think today's it's the earliest.
Yeah. And it's funny because we are recording the last episode on the earliest morning.
True,
That's funny.
true. Well, the
So
last
how are you? It's been a long
last
time,
for
right?
now at least. Let's see. But
All good with
let's
you?
not spoil it. We talk about it in let's talk about this in the end. In the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hello everyone, welcome to the Soft Bites podcast, and we have
This is
a
the last episode.
yeah, yeah. And we are going to talk about something that you already told us. I think
Yeah.
it was you announced it here and first when you decided to do it. But you actually sold your practice, your dental clinic.
Yes. Since the
You sold it in the end of last year. So you started 2026 already, not owning the practice. So everything was done in the
Mhm.
end of 2025, right?
Yeah, so the process, um, I the process started in middle 2025, and since the 11th January of um, of 2026, this was the day of the transition. So it was a long
Okay.
process of taking care of all the bureaucracy and taking care of all the negotiations and so on. But it was a peaceful one,
Okay. We're going to
complex,
talk
but yeah.
about all of that. But first,
Hmm.
we're going to talk about all that process, how it went. But first, why? Why did you decided to sell your practice?
Well, I think that we have I've mentioned this several times in the past that one of the goals of a dental practice is to be sellable. This is why you need to be organized. You need to be less dependent on the rock stars and so on. You know, we've talked a lot about this. So to be able to make the machinery smooth so it's sellable, because I mean, unless you have kids that want to be dentists, or you have someone in the family that wants to follow through with the business. I think that whenever you have a company, you have to think about eventually selling out. This is something that, for example, Portuguese people, we are not usually used to that, because there's a lot of companies that are family owned and family driven, so it just stays in the family. But I think that in any business, you have to look forward and see that there's always going to be a sweet spot, an optimal point where you should be selling. Because if you pass that point, you'll be losing money. And I think that all business have a sweet spot for selling, if this is the goal. And for me, I always had the goal of selling my practice sooner or later. I think I don't know if the timing was I thought that I'll probably sell it later on, but I mean the stars have aligned, and I think it was a good timing for me, because it was probably at the highest of the practice in terms of performance in every single way, and I thought that that's it. This is the best time for me to sell it, and the reason why was because from a pragmatic point of view, I think that businesses should be driven, should be run to be able to be sold. That's number one. And also there are a lot of things in my life, in my professional life, and in my personal life that I thought, well, this is it. Professionally, because I think that I have achieved all the goals that I wanted in terms of publications, giving courses. Financially, I was also in a good point, and I'm gonna be turning 50 in about 2 or 3 years. So it seemed that uh, I mean the next cycle of my life is coming in the way that I don't need to be um, grinding so much. I don't need to be working so much, and I just want to enjoy my life as much as I want, as much as I can. And it's not that I only work. I think that was quite balanced in the way that. I took a lot of vacations. There were several years that I took like 3 months off, which is amazing, right? But there was something, and this is interesting. Uh, I've I've been working a lot on black and white. I mean, either full work or full leisure. The grayish, the in betweens were. I was never very good over the last 20 years because, of course, you have to run a business. But I was very good at working very hard. I mean, sometimes for weeks in a row. Sometimes not sleeping as much as I should. But and then I was also very good at not giving a fuck for 2 or 3 weeks in whatever country, sometimes going alone and just staying there, just be completely or as much as possible in nature. And so I cannot say that I didn't enjoy myself and I didn't took the time off. I did, but I think that being 100% at work or 100% at leisure, I don't think it's a healthy thing to sustain for many years. Because when I say I was 100% at work, I mean sometimes for several weeks, working really hard, not only in terms of clinical work, but as we talk so much in terms of organizing things. I was always with ideas: what should we do next? What should we implement next in the practice? What about this? And of course, also dealing with all the fires and things that come up. And on top of that, giving the courses, traveling. So it was a very high demanding schedule for me when I was working. So I think that I'm looking forward to, for example, one thing that I feel today is with this, I'm not as much as a computer as I was because I just don't need to answering emails, thinking about this, thinking about that, and it's good to instead of having like either 100% black or 100% white days. I think it's good to be in between, just, I mean, sometimes I get home at 6, and before that, I would just go to the email and take care of all the things that you have to deal with the business. And today, I just feel sometimes, so what should I do now, right? What should I do with this time? But actually, and I think that you agree with me, this is what normal should be, right? You should have like a big chunk of the day. I wouldn't say one third, but ideally one third to work, one third to sleep, and one third just to have fun or for leisure or for doing nothing. And I think that chunk of not doing nothing was missing in my days. I was pretty much full speed. And even though I took a lot of time off, I don't think that compensates for what you should be doing throughout the day. This is what I feel. And yes, and it's been very good. And I mean, it's a month, right? I'm 1 month in,
Yeah.
and it's very funny. But of course, I was also not in Portugal during the day of the transition, but I follow all the process, and it's been good. Yeah. So the reason why
So
is that because I just wanted some more balance in my life.
tell us also to whom you sell it,
Oh yeah,
and
I
and and also what do you think about the different models of selling a practice? Because
yeah,
you did it in a way that it was very smooth, like you said. So tell us a little
yeah,
bit that the to whom you sell it, how was that transition, and the different models that you can have when you
yeah.
start thinking about selling your practice.
I think the one of the most common models here in Portugal is to sell it to like a big corporate company, right? And I had that proposal actually during the negotiation with my associates, which were the people that I sold the practice to. I had a proposal of a big corporate company like a fund. Many years ago, I also had that proposition. So basically, they look at average practices that are well established, and corporate funds, they come and they just give you a chunk of decent money with the obligation that you have to stay there as a rock star sometimes 10 years. I didn't want that, and I also didn't want to lose control. So the way that I did it was for me what worked best, and this is not means the best solution for everybody, but I've made a big effort in treating people around me uh, decently, uh, in terms of making them feel very welcomed in the place that they are working, either financially or in terms of coaching, all the things that we talked. I mean, if you have an organized place that things run smoothly and predictably, um, I think that eventually you may have a proposal of one of your associates to keep the practice. And I think this is a win win situation because they know how the things work. They have contributed to the development of the company. So it becomes like a natural path. And in my case, Teresa, that she does most of the prosto, and Luis that does a lot of implants. Teresa is with me maybe for, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years, and Luis maybe for 10 years. And they have already, over the last years, they sometimes would tell me, look, if you think about selling your practice, just let us know. We would be interested. And that's it. And they bought it half each one of them. So they are not the only doctors working there, but they bought half. And for me, it's a win-win situation because of course during the negotiation, we have also arranged all the details so that I could also feel satisfied. So I am still working in my practice. This is important. I still work as a dentist clinically. I am still the clinical director. So I'm responsible for all the, I would say, clinical decisions there. But I just go there and do my work, and I don't deal with human resources. I don't need with the financial. I don't deal with the strategy, even though, of course, like for example, customer experience and of course clinical aspects. And I'm the clinical director, so I help them a lot in terms of treatment planning. I do that remotely by email, as we talked about for several times, and I work there. I work there as a dentist with a percentage that I'm happy with for the work that I do, and um, and yes, that's one that is the model that for me works better. But this is not a model that you can just decide just like that, because I think that looking back, this selling of the practice has been prepared for 20 years, because you have to make the people that work with you feel welcome and feel attracted to the business, right? So you have to, they need to understand that this is a good business for them, because they work there for many years and they know how consistently things can run, with all the things that we talked here on the soft type podcast. And but this is a long-term game. If you want to go through that route, this is a long-term game that you have to make people want to establish there and want to create roots in the practice, so that they feel that they can buy the practice. Of course, some dentists, they have someone in the family that can eventually get a practice. But I think that you always should be thinking about that in the long term. I think that in any practice, if you don't have someone in the family that's going to take on the practice, you should be thinking about that, because what happens is that after a certain point, I mean, your energy levels will drop, and eventually the performance of your practice will drop. And the optimal place, the optimal time that you should be selling, you may miss it, right? And then it becomes more difficult. So at the end of the spectrum is that old dentist, that old man that is just having this practice. Now he sees less patients. People see that he's old and no one wants to buy his practice. So this is the opposite of the spectrum, right? The last part of the spectrum. You don't want to reach that point. Um, and of course, I was far from reaching there, but this was the optimal for me because like I said, I want to. I'm almost 50, and I wanna live the remaining decades of my life with as much energy as I possibly can, and this was the optimal part for me. I also wanted to use the financial reward of selling the practice in the ways that make me feel happy and that can guarantee my future, right? Yeah. So this was the best spot for the
I
best
want
time for me.
I just wanted to ask you two things about what you said. The first is that you started to mention that one of the models of selling is to sell it to a investment group, and that
Yeah,
happens a lot in
very often.
Portugal. I think it happens a lot in Spain also. And this, I think it starts also in other countries of Europe. We start to see that also. And you said, but I didn't want to lose control
Yeah.
in that way. So um, when you sell it to an investment group, it's going to be different from when you sell it like you did
Yeah.
to colleagues that already work with
Yeah.
you, that you know. So you it gets more, let's say it more, not so personal, right? So it's more business, right?
Business driven, yeah. Yeah. So the proposals that I had a proposal in the past, maybe about 15 years ago, with a very well-known fund that entered Portugal. But the goal of the funds, and I'm not the expert talking about this, but they just want to get in, see the potential of growth in a given market, in this case dentistry, and just maximize that growth and then sell it, right? So in
Okay.
order to maximize that growth, they want the rock stars to be there, right? And they usually sign a contract of 10, 15 years where you have to be there, because you want to maximize the profits, but also you lose control of the management, you lose control of the, I'm not saying it's going to be better or worse. In some situations it might even be better, right? But I think that you dehumanize in my
Hmm.
perspective, you dehumanize the dentistry,
Okay.
and I didn't
And
want that. Yeah.
how is it to work now in the practice that you used to own? Because I know several colleagues that have that dilemma. So, okay, I'm going to sell
Mhm.
it. Am I going to be continue to work here or not?
Mhm.
Because I know that when a practice is sold, the owner, at least for the first times, he stays. But I also know some dentists that they thought that they could do it, but they end up leaving much earlier
Yeah.
than they
Yeah.
thought because they it doesn't work.
Yeah.
They used to
Yeah.
own it. Now they don't own it, and they still behave in a way like they own it. So how is it to work in that? Because I think that is it must
Yeah.
require some adaptation also.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to that. Just coming back a little bit to the corporate things, and but financially, I wanted to add financially for the practice owner, usually the business is very good financially. And in my case, many years ago, I had a proposition that was really good, and even last year, I had a proposition that was also financially better. It was financially better than the solution that it was actually much better than the solution that I sold to my associates. But I could never have the benefits that I have. For example, with the selling of this practice, I have negotiated that I can have like up to 6 months of vacation per year. I negotiated my percentage. I negotiated the kind of case that I want to treat. And I'm still the clinical director. So, but they also want me to keep being the clinical director because it's a win-win situation. Well, in a corporate decision, financially it may be very good, but usually you're stuck there, right? You are stuck there. And for me, one of the proposals, and I can even tell you, one of the proposals that I had was not only to be the clinical, the practice owner of the practice that I would sell, but also to be one of the faces of the fund to give some sort of guarantee for the for the fund itself, to give some sort of good image, right? Because I think that my image has some credibility here in Portugal, and that they wanted to use that. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but I didn't felt it was right for me, right? And I thought that I was gonna lose a little bit of my integrity if I had to defend some of some things that I don't believe. Right? I mean, I don't. I cannot be here at the Soft Bites podcast saying one thing and then being at the head of the board of directors of a hedge fund and doing completely different. So it was financially very, very appealing to me at that time. It was like even last year, but I didn't want to. I don't. It didn't feel aligned with what I wanted, and that's it. And I also I'm a person that I don't need very expensive stuff to live or to show off, and so I was financially at a place that I was happy with. Now, regarding that question that you said, that how do I feel in the practice that it's no longer mine? I think that's a feeling that happens to everyone, right? Um, you it's only been 1 month. Of course, there are some small details and some small little problems that may arise. For example, when you realize that the way that of a patient was not very well treated in terms of communication. Well, I mean, when you see an issue, you have to talk, right? But it's good because Luis and Teresa, they appreciate that. They want that feedback. They said, yes, you are the clinical director, and we want you to give us feedback. If things are not working, we can discuss. And I give suggestions. I mean, I don't make the decisions. I just suggest, and look, I think this and that. I think you should focus on this because this is the way that the practice has been working for 20 years. I think you should be focusing on trust. So you are selling trust. Patients want to trust. So it's always better to play a long-term game than a short-term game. And for them, it's also I don't think it's easy because I mean they have they have financial obligations that are very significant over the next 10 years, but they are not even 40, both of them. So I think they could make something interesting if they think about things in the long term, of course, and they have to pay their obligations, and they are significant. Um, but yes, when I mean pay their obligation, it's not to me, but I mean it's to the bank or to whatever financial obligations they have. But but it's been a good interaction because I am like an advisor. Let's say, yeah, look, being a clinical director, I think I should talk about this, and that. And I always told them, look, when you come here, you have two new pairs of fresh eyes, and you can eventually see things that I haven't seen and that I have missed. So I think that you should look at where should you reduce the costs, what things can you implement, what things can you optimize. And I think the transition has been very smooth. They have not made that much differences because I think that the systems have been worked very consistently for the last 20 years. But I think that they can eventually do better, and I'm just here to help them. Do I feel do I feel sometimes strange? Well, yes, because I don't have all the decisions anymore, so I need to know what is my role up to where I should be. So I can go up here. I can go up to this. This is my area of domain, but I cannot go any further. But I'm happy with that. I just go there, do my work, I make my daily money, let's say, and get out and bye bye. See you tomorrow. I'm not thinking about how should if I should have this conversation with this person or thinking about employees or human resources, and that is consuming. I mean, if I only had my practice, that would be one thing, but I have a lot of other things going on in my life, and it's it's very draining to be able to take care of all the management and human resources. Even though I thought that and I think that I did a very good job over the last years. It was not perfect, but I think it was very good. I just you have to pay that price with energy, right? And I just felt it was time for me to be in a different role there. But in summary, yes, I do feel good there. But if I sold it to a corporate fund, I think it would have been more problematic. Yeah.
Um, if you reach that decision to sell, so what do you think the first step should be? What you
No,
should do
that's a
first?
good question. Yeah. Um, I think the best the most important decision is when you open before you open the practice is what do I want from this, right? Do I want this to serve as a platform because I want to document cases, which was my initial thing? Do I want this to be my retirement fund in terms of which is basically what I did, right? Just want to invest in the company so it's sellable. Do I want this because I just want to make the maximum amount of money and then just sell it? I mean, and am I going in all alone or am I going in with an associate? So I think that the most important thing is to have the goal in mind before you even buy a practice. That's the most important thing. Now, if you buy a practice and you have never thought about selling it and you are starting to think about it, or you want to consider that, I think that the most important thing is how well can the practice do without you? And this is something that we've talked a lot about here in the podcast, which is how free from the rock star is your practice, because that's the best indicator of how sellable it is. If your practice is highly dependent on you, for example, if your practice has your name on it, like clinic of Dr. X, that's a very bad sign for selling, right? Because it means that it's mainly a practice based on you. So it is the practice is as valuable and as sellable as less dependent on the rock star on few people. This is why you need to make sure that the practice has its own soul that needs to be higher than yours in many aspects from a financial point of view and from a business point of view. So you have to work on that. So the first decision is how sellable is my practice and what is the worth of the practice. In my case, I outsourced the the evaluation of the practice because I want to have objective numbers. I want to have objective numbers to show Luis and show Therese, look, this is what this company says that the practice is worth. And this is, I agree here or I don't disagree here. But selling a practice is not a linear process. It's not like, okay, you reach a number, this is the number. For example, in my case, there were several variables. So if I stay there, with my expertise, let's say, that means money, right? So that means that the practice, that if they want to buy the business and if they want to keep me in there as a clinical director, that is an advantage for them, right? So the practice tends to cost slightly more. On the other hand, the buildings of the practice, they were mine, the buildings of the practice. Half of that, a part of that was from my family, and the other ones I bought it and they were mine. So they now started to pay a rent for the building to myself, right? So this makes the practice less worth because now that business has this fixed costs of renting a property. So there are things that push the money up, the value of the practice up, and there are things that push the value of the practice down, right? So it's not to reach a number of how much a company is worth. It's not a linear process. There's a lot of things. For example, I stopped being an employee there, right? I am just a contractor there. So some of the expenses of the practice are now lower than they were when I was there. Okay. I also need to separate my financial rewards in terms of education from the financial rewards from the clinical practice that were in the same company. So that was ruled out. So there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account, and it is a complex process in terms of even the financial the evaluation of the practice, the math that you had to do, they are quite complex and they are not always objective. There are also subjective things like is this guy going to stay here? What other expenses are we going to have? So then you reach a number that needs to be negotiated. And there are never perfect businesses for both ways. It's just what's best in the common interest, and you have to reach that decision. And
But your advice is
we're like,
to hire an external independent
for
company to
sure,
for the first
yeah,
evaluation, right? Because what
for
I see
sure,
also is that there are a lot of emotional
yeah,
part in a dental clinic, and I already heard about some businesses that the practices are overpriced because the
for sure,
owners
yeah,
they put a lot of their lives in there, and they think that
yes. Well, good luck for that.
yeah.
Good
So
luck with
I
that. You're not gonna
your
sell it that
advice is
way.
that for to start thinking about numbers, first hire an external independent company for an
Sure.
evaluation, and then go
Yeah.
through all the other subjective, maybe
Yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
parts that
Yeah.
for you to be able to reach that final
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. You're gonna get a punch in your stomach when you get the real numbers, always, because you always believe that you deserve more. And the problem is that in dental practice, especially in Portugal, the margin of profit is way lower than we would like to. It's way lower, and it's I mean, you look at the numbers, you look at the money that you make at the end of the year, and it may look a lot like a lot of money, right? But then the expenses that you have, and the business itself, it's not a very attractive business unless the practice is really well organized. Otherwise, it's not an attractive business. Well, I don't know, honestly, I don't know many practices that are sellable um, in a way that I think that people would be surprised how much their practice is actually worth. Yeah, I think that people will be surprised, especially if they if they go to if they outsource that to a company that does the evaluation. They are very direct with you, and they cut all the nonsense, and they just let you know things how they are. So this is it, is the money you make, and this is highly dependent on you. And if you leave, this is gonna be worth this, and if you don't leave, this is gonna be worth this and this. And it's quite a humbling experience, let's say it. And I think that actually everybody think about selling a practice should eventually do that, even just for out of curiosity, because it is a humbling process. Yeah.
So that when you really think about selling, you're already prepared for what you're going to hear it.
Yes, of course. When you w- it was, I think, six
And
months
in order also
in
to start like you said, maybe the first step it's already when you start with your practice and through the process of owning it, you should start preparing for one day selling, right? Because we talk
yes,
about
yes,
a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
through the
yeah,
podcast. We talked about a lot how one of the major problems with dental clinics is that they live just day by day, putting out
yes,
fires.
yes,
So if you live like that, there's no space for almost anything, but much less to start preparing
yeah,
the process of selling your
yes,
your
yes,
your your practice.
yeah.
and
I
and
was telling you,
sometimes, yeah,
sorry,
tell
I
me,
was telling that my process, uh, after I made the decision, so this is it. This is the year. It was middle 2025. And I said, "So, Luis Andres, are you still interested? Because if you are, I can see the evaluation." So I did the evaluation myself, and I showed them the numbers. So this is what the numbers are. I'm going to ask more than this because of this, and that. Um, and yes, that's it. And we reach a solution. But I think having a third party doing evaluation, I think it's critical. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because I saw some cases, for example, that of practices um, that lived in that way, day by day, putting out fires, and I felt like
Hmm.
the owners were counting, okay, that one day I'm going to sell it and it's going to be okay. So like
No.
it was their their
Yeah, it's
retirement fund,
not.
and it's not,
The
and that can be misleading, because then when
Yeah.
you sell it, you see that it's not worth much, because the numbers
Yes.
are cold and
Yes.
humbling, like you said. So
Yeah.
I think this advice of you living your practice, knowing and preparing to sell, but
Yeah.
and to have a reality of numbers already,
Yeah.
it's it's
Yes.
it's it's
The
better,
practice,
because otherwise it might be a surprise.
yeah, the practice needs to have its own life, independent from you. What I see in those cases that you described, this is a very typical case, is that the dentist just keeps there being the rock star, and once he realizes he's already too old to sell it. And the practice it is just there's just an addiction. The practice is addicted to the rock star, so it's impossible to sell it now. And it can be very heartbreaking actually to see some situations of people, dentists that are just older. They don't have kids that want to be dentists, because if you have kids that want to be dentists, it's a completely different game, right? But if they don't have kids that want to be dentists, then sometimes it's very heartbreaking to see the the end of the cycle of the practice, because there's no other option instead of the dentist being there. And it's and after a certain point in your life, your energy is just not the same, your focus is just not the same, and the practice is just stops growing. And when I mean grow, I don't mean growing in terms of size, but growing in terms of um, of culture, of organization, of optimization. It needs to keep growing, right? So you need to be on top of things. And if you lose that energy and that drive, which you'll eventually do if the practice is addicted to you, right? You will eventually realize that you start not being as up to date as some other dentists, and it can be sometimes heartbreaking to see the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years of some practices where the owner just stays there and keeps insisting, because it's just a prison, as we talked many times, because the practice is not prepared to live without that addiction of the owner of the rock star. Yeah. And it can be very heartbreaking to see those situations. And they are much more common than we would like to admit.
So looking back, would you do it again? Would you open a practice again?
I, uh, I'm laughing because but I've proposed part of this question, so it's not like I'm surprised by that question. But it's when being I suggested that question, but now having been said by you, it's different, right? Would I do it? Would I do it the same? Um, I would do it the same. Yes, I would do it the same because it allowed me to many things. It allowed me many things, actually. It allowed me, first, I was not tailored to be a manager. So I had to learn, I had to grow, and I have to step up into a part of me that was never existed. I was never a manager. I was always much more of a creative person. Maybe I was much more artistic than actually being a manager. So I had to develop that part of me, and it made me grow as a person. It made me grow a lot, and I had to face parts of me um, that I didn't, that otherwise I wouldn't face, right? To be able to deal with confrontation with other people. I'm not saying in a violent way, in a healthy way, right? To have tough conversations, to be able to make a lot of mistakes in terms of human interactions, right? Um, I had to grow a lot. Yes, and it also allowed me to document the cases to be able to do a lot of education. So otherwise, it would be difficult for in my case, it would be difficult to not impossible, but to find a practice where I could rent a room to be able to play around and document the case. That would also be possible. It would not be the same thing. But so management came into my life as an accident. I was never meant to be a manager, but I had to learn how to do it, and I met amazing people throughout those 20 years that allowed me to be a better management. I had to learn a lot, and I had to experiment a lot. And for example, what the Soft Bites podcast is actually a result of me being a practice owner. This would never happen, right? And we would never made this, which I think is something that I'm very proud of, and we can talk about that later. Um, but emotionally, it made me a better person to be able to drop myself to go into the fire and dealing with human resources and just understanding more about how people work. And I think this is very important in whatever you do in your life. Um, get get as much interactions with people as you can get, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matters, right? Is the how you connect and you deal or you disconnect with some other human beings. At the end of the day, it's all about human connection, right? And it forced parts of me that otherwise wouldn't have been forced. I am a better person and I am a richer person emotionally because I own the practice for sure. Because there is uh, um, there is something that needs to happen to your own being when when you have a business that I think it's difficult to explain unless you do it, because it's just like a forced intensive experience when you run a business with people. It just transforms you, right? And of course it also drains you. It also there's also some negative parts, but it's all part of the game of the human connection and growth, and bringing you to a wiser and more a richer into a richer situation emotionally. Yes.
Um,
And
I
sorry,
wanted
and again,
I
financially, if I from a financial point of view, I would do it again. Yes, I would do it again. I think it's a good model to start a practice with the goal of selling it in the long term. I think it's a good financial model. It's like your retirement fund. You just have to. It's not. It has risks, of course, because um, it's I mean, it's a business that it's not completely certain. There's a lot of competition, but yes, I think I would even financially, I would do it again. Yeah.
no, I had here to ask you what you have learned in this 20 years and how it has changed you as a person. You already answered. Okay, you had to learn management. Emotionally, you changed as a person because you you were forced like to connect with people and to but I'm sure it was not only that. What else? What have you learned in this 20 years? Because I mean, you don't have to, as a dentist, you don't have to be a practice owner to be forced
For
to
sure.
develop
Yes.
emotional skills. You have to have that
Yes.
because you work
Yeah.
every day with
Sure.
people. If you are disconnected, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
learn that on the hard way, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I think that, and that's one of the reasons why dentistry is so magical. Let's we use that word because you have the human connection. You have to have the technical skills, of course, and that
Yes.
has to be trained. But you at a certain moment you realize, okay, this is not enough. The technical, I have to. Otherwise, I have to be able to connect with the people that work with me, either you are a practice owner or not, with my patient. Otherwise, you just like an automatic pilot and you grow completely uh you are drained and you cannot do it for long. So, I understand everything that you said when you say that if you own a business, then the difficulty is much higher, because then you have a team, and then you start with one assistant, and then it's two, and then you hire another colleague, and then it grows, and it becomes this huge thing that can completely devours you. And then it's not being a dentist, is being a practice owner that some colleagues cannot handle, and you have to
Hmm.
learn those leadership skills.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. It's 20 years. So, Jorge André in the beginning, and Jorge André now
In the
after
end.
20 years, how that's changed you as a
Uh,
personal as a person.
It's I am I think that in certain, I mean, I would be lying if if I said that I didn't find throughout my path people that have disappointed me, and sometimes big time. So in a sense, yes, I think your skin gets thicker, right? You get, because you have skin in the game, and it just gets thicker, right? But I think that one of the things that I feel that emotionally they were more intense for me is that I have this tendency to like to save people, and sometimes I took decisions. For example, I mean, allowing some people around me to do higher education and realizing that they didn't want to, or if they wanted, then they would leave the practice, stuff like that. There were important things that marked my role as a manager, which means that sometimes you believe that you know what's the best for people or what they want. I mean, and you objectively know this is going to be better for them, but not everybody wants to follow a path that you think it's obvious for them. And sometimes people, they just want a life that is just like that, and they just don't want to grow, whatever growing means. So I had some disappointments throughout my role as a manager, and I did a lot of mistakes as well. I did many mistakes in terms of managing people. Looking back, would I the thing that I would do pretty much everything the same, but I would probably do it less emotionally charged. I would say to myself, this is not such a big deal. Just try to deal with this with the most caring and human way, and don't get carried by your emotions, because when you are a perfectionist and when you want things to go in a certain way, sometimes you get carried away and you believe that people should agree with what is obvious, and that's not only the case. People don't always agree with what seems obvious. People are human, and they are sometimes unpredictable, and you just have to find a common ground. It's just something that you need to keep playing the game, let's say, at a level that people, or within certain limits, at a level that people understand. And I think that the most important thing, if I want to give you, and we talked about this many times, which is don't be reactive. Be less reactive as possible, because a leader is really someone that can handle a lot of pressure and reactivity. I'm not saying about faking or putting down strong emotions, but just bear in mind that reactivity never leads you to a good outcome. Whatever the outcome is, if you overreact and if you react to something that is not, if you react in an excessive way, that can eventually affect people around you. If you don't stay calm and stay focused, you will never reach that outcome. Yeah. So I think that being reactive as a manager is the worst thing, and you learn with a mistake. Especially, you learn not to be reactive and to give space to people. And to know when is the time to talk, when is not the time to talk, and especially most important thing, to prevent all those fires in the first place with all the systems that should be implemented. That is critical. You need to be preventive, but you cannot prevent everything, and you will have some disappointments, right? And it's part of the game. But being emotionally carried away by that, I would do exactly the same thing. I would just not do it so emotionally charged as I've done some of the things. Yeah.
What about you? You already said some of the things that you would have done differently, less perfection, less reactive. What about business wise? Something that you would have
Mm.
done differently
Oh
on in
yes,
this
I would.
20 years?
Yeah, for sure. It took me about 5 years down the road, especially when I went to London to do the master in prosthodontics, that I met Alok, and he gave me the business perspective of dentistry. I didn't have that. It was all about me, the practice for the first 5 years. And looking back today, I would start the practice without me. I mean, I knew some of the things because when I opened the practice, the name is not my name; it's Aura. I was already thinking about this is going to be a business one day, and I eventually going to sell it. But I had no clue what I was doing. So when I met Alok, I realized that yes, look, I cannot be the rock star. This is when I started to delegate endodontic treatments and prevention and hygiene. And if I opened the practice today, I would open, if I was like only one person, I would open with trying to bring as soon as possible, sorry, one endodontist and one oral hygienist, and want to make sure that the patients understood from the first day that this was a team and not about me, the less about me as possible, right? I was just going to be a player in the team and not the big player or the rock star in the team. So I would have started to make the practice less dependent on myself as soon as possible.
What about
Yes,
the
this is what I
manager?
would
Would
change.
that be something that would
Yes,
have
I would.
changed you
Yeah,
also?
I would probably hire a manager because if I had made that decision 5 years in the beginning of the practice, the need of the manager would be um, more obvious sooner, right? So I only hired the manager, I would say maybe for the last 5 years. I think so, yes. But I would probably hire them as soon as possible. But you also have to understand that in Portugal, you focus more on increasing the number of dental nurses than actually increasing than bringing the manager. But it should be the opposite. But it's not a very obvious decision or a very obvious exercise to realize that the manager is really key, right? So it's difficult. It's a difficult, but I would certainly hire the manager as soon as possible. And also today, I would probably looking back for the early adopters of social media in terms of marketing and stuff. I think they did really well. I would still keep the same style, but I'll probably jump into social media earlier. Yeah.
Okay. I have nothing else here to ask you. I don't know if you want to add something else.
Well, what else I was having here? I was looking at the notes of the things that I wanted to talk. Well, one of the things I was looking here, um, I think you have to leave a business that is financially healthy. Yes, actually, that's the only way it's sellable, right?
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud. I look at what they have at the moment and the financial possibilities that they have. Because again, selling a practice is a complex process where then, for example, how do you deal with who starts to pay the bills after when? And sometimes, for example, you are paying bills for treatments that are only going to be done in the next month, while the bill was paid by the previous owner. Do you understand? So there's a lot of things, and you have to reach a point that everybody is happy. So I'm going to pay the invoices up until this date. After this date, you're going to pay. And if I continue to do the cases after I sell the practice, this is the percentage of this. I mean, there's a lot of things that you sometimes you need to. In the cases that are transitioning, which means the patients paid a little bit before the sale of the practice, and they're going to pay and they're going to finish the treatment with the other owners, and who is going to do that? If I'm going to do that, how is my percentage going to be? Because I was paid as a practice owner, and I'm also going to be paid as a dentist. There's a lot of nuances there. But one of the things that I think I'm very proud of is to leave them in a very stable financial position. I'm very proud of that. I think that I did a very good job in terms of making sure that they have nothing to complain. I mean, only minor stuff that can eventually, some things that eventually I should have paid and I didn't pay it because I mean, sometimes the invoice was lost, and I mean, some very small stuff, that. But I'm very happy for that, and I think that that's something to be of high integrity financially. Is something that I'm very proud of, and one of the stories that comes to my mind was, and this is, I don't know if I ever told you this story. It's very interesting. My dad, during the pandemic, he has a restaurant, right? And he did something that I was very surprised, and I mean, I was not surprised because this is the way that he works. But during the peak of the pandemic, where no one knew anything that was about to happen, and the restaurants had to close, he called me to his home, and I went there, and he showed me. There was like a table on the, actually it was on the bed of the room that I used to live in. There were several amounts of money, of cash, divided into small pieces. And they said, "Look, I just want you to know that this is here because if something happens to me, this is the money that you need to give to each employee at the end of the month, right?" And that was not surprising because this is the way he is highly organized in terms of money. And I think this is a good example of how you should be maximum integrity in terms of financial decisions. People need to trust you. And the way that they trust you is that you are as transparent and as honest as possible in the financial way. And, and yes, this is something that I think it's important for someone that is thinking about selling a practice. And, and also, I realize that I don't that all my professional goals have been reached, and all the other things that I still want to do professional, I don't need to be there as a practice owner. I can be there as a dentist, but also you have to realize that I have a lot of freedom in there. If I wanna document a case for a full Saturday morning or a full Friday morning or whatever, I have the freedom to do that. So this was something that was built through 20 years. It's not like something that you just decide over the last year that you want to sell your practice and you want to do it in a way that you can have freedom. You need to gain the trust of the people around you, and you need to make the proposal for your associates if it's really appealing for them to be buying the practice. And this is my story, let's say, but it's not the end of the story. And there's one thing also that, over the last years, and I think we talked a little bit about that. uh, I think that the world is a different place over the next, in the last, I would say, 3, 4, 5 years. I don't think this is only the pandemic. I think the world is actually a different place now. And this is something that we have talked a little bit, even why we should be. This is going to be the last episode of the podcast, and why we believe that it's a good that the cycle is ending, at least for this part of the Soft Bites podcast, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. But I think that the world is different, and this is also one of the reasons I think that indirectly made me sell the practice. I think people are different, and I don't want to look like an old man saying, "Look, in my time things were different." But as you know, I travel a lot, and I go to over the last 3, 5 years. I've went to many different places around the world. I mean, Latin America, Europe, Russia, Asia, Australia, the Caribbean. And I feel that people are not the same, especially over the last 2 to 3 years. I think there's something shifting there. I don't know exactly what it is, but if I had to make a summary, I don't think that people are as happy as they should be or as they were. I think that people are less happy actually. And I see that in the faces of people. I see that in airports. I see that in elevators. I think there's just something that doesn't feel right. And I was in Costa Rica for 3 weeks, which is even Latin America is one of the less influenced places by that. But I think that there's something different going on. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think that people are just less human now, and also the way that you have to behave. So the parameters of success today are very shallow. That's what I believe, and I see that people measure success by parameters that I'm not interested at all. For me, they are just not interesting. There's a lot of it's all about what you look like, a lot of money driven and about what you look like. And it's also even the world from a social point of view and geographical or political point of view, even though I don't have any strong political views about many things, but I think it is different. Things are different. I don't know exactly why people are more grayish today than they were a few years ago, but I think it's maybe a mix of everything. It's social media that you have to sell your soul on social media, and even uh, if you wanna have some sort of reach in social media, you have to make some stupid thing in the first 3 seconds, right? And imagine if the best artists of our time had to think about. Imagine if Kurt Cobain. I saw a post recently. Imagine if Kurt Cobain would have to dance for 3 seconds in the video to promote his his first records, right? So I think it's not a good place. I think that social media or the political situation or the wars or whatever, I think the world is just different. And I just feel that in the people. I think I'm a sensitive person that way, and I feel that a lot in people. And it's also made me withdraw a little bit from human resources roles because I don't. I hope that we can. I hope that people can actually be as happy as they can be, and I don't know if the world at this time is allowing them to be, or I think they have been highly conditioned. And I know that at least you feel part of that the same, right? And I would just like to see what you think about that. But this is what I think. Yeah, there's something going on, and it's not
Mhm.
something that
Yeah.
makes me feel
No.
good.
Yeah, I think the same. I mean, I withdraw myself out of social media already for more than 1 year. It was in the beginning. It was not something that it was planned. It was happened very naturally. So because I started to not identify myself with the selling part that you said, because I felt like I had to sell myself, and like even I could not play that game. I didn't know how to, and then I
Yeah.
even I even I even tried to, hire a company to treat to of my of the social media part, and then I didn't identify with that, and then I again started to do it myself, and but this was already more than 1 year ago. I don't know the last
Yeah.
time that I posted on mindful dentistry. It was more than 1 year ago. So for me, it and then I it all like that, what you said, something shifted, in the world. So for example, the owners of this, the
Yeah.
of all this big tech, and if you
Yeah.
now Instagram, Facebook, so Meta, and all everything that is behind it, that I started to, oh my god, such a uh
Yeah.
dark world, and I don't know if I want to be
And
part
and
of it.
and yeah, and the
And
recent news are even less are even less encouraging, right? It
Yeah,
just
and
it seems
then
like all a big mess, right?
when I stopped selling myself in social media, I also stopped saying no to a lot of to many things, because I did a lot of work to promote myself that it was for free.
Yeah.
And when I remember in the end of at the beginning of 25, so 1 year ago, I said, okay, so during this year, I'm going to say no um,
Yeah.
to free things, except in universities and students. And when I started doing that, a lot of work diminished, because I said, and
Mm-hmm.
I realized with the amount of things that I did for free, and sometimes that I
Yeah.
even had to pay of my own pocket. So, and then without the selling of the social media, and without that part of working for for free, I started to be more focused in because I still work. I still do my mindful dentistry training courses. I still go to practices, do mindful courses. I still have Ser Dentária in Portugal, but people come to me because they are recommended through colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
and they know what I do, and so it's more focused work,
Mm-hmm.
so I realized that I gain more time for me, for my I
Mm-hmm.
don't I stopped saying also no to work in some sometimes I did like this workshops, free workshops, but it was like here at 11 o'clock in the evening. So I'm not going to do that anymore. So I
Yeah.
start to be more with
Selective.
my boundaries, also more selective with my boundaries. Yeah, and it worked. I mean, I continued to work
Yeah.
through the year, and yeah, I for me now, for example, to be offline is a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, because it diminished a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
and and yeah, here with the podcast, it's like you said, I'm so proud of the work that we did, of the conversations that
Mm-hmm.
we had, even the last episode that we recorded with Antonio Mata.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, I felt so good again, and I send you a message saying that thank you. It's so nice. It always, I have this good feeling when we finish, and that's why we did it, because it felt
Yeah.
really good. We felt like, at least, I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but for me, I also always feel this good
Mm-hmm.
energy when I end it,
Yeah.
and
For
that's
sure.
this rush of adrenaline, and so yeah, that feels so good, and I'm sure that the people that follow us feel that energy also, and
Yeah.
that we brings at something
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, but
good.
I agree with you with this model today of of social media that you really have to sell yourself. I think this is not what the Soft Bites podcast was about. I mean, I think that the podcast was always about being honest and transparent and being as human as possible, right? And I think that we are entering an era, and I hope this reverses where I don't think that being human and honest and transparent is being rewarded as it should be,
Yeah,
right?
and also I there's one thing that happened last year that also made me very disappointed. It was like the wellness industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wellness industry is becoming also. I started to see some things that I didn't like.
It's a
And
business, right?
yeah, it's a business. It's to sell again. It is to sell. Is to make
Yes.
money. And it was like, I. This is not me.
Yeah.
And
I think
yeah,
some people may say, well, but what's wrong about selling? There's nothing wrong about
there's
selling, but what
nothing
is the
wrong
goal of
about.
selling? What is the goal of? It's just like that.
But
It's
but
just that Mexican story, right? Yeah, but go on. Sorry.
no, it's just that there's nothing wrong about selling. But
But what is the
yeah,
goal of selling? What do you want to do with that,
yeah, that, and the
right?
way you do it, you have to be, yeah, you have
Of
to be
course,
honest,
yes,
and
yes.
and you
I
have to,
was I was I was thinking about that story about the Mexican guy, that an American came to a Mexican guy and it was just catching just in the beach, laying in the sand. Says, why are you here not fishing? He says, well, I fished in the morning, so why don't you go fish in the afternoon? He says, why was that? Because then you could have more money, you could buy more boats, and then you could make more money, even more money. Says, why, what was the goal of all that money? He says, well, because then you can hire other people and do the work for you, and you could be here in the beach and not working. And he says, that's exactly what I'm doing now, right? So I think that sometimes in this financial world, in this where selling is so important, I think there needs to be balance in everything. The goal of selling is that you can gain a reward. That reward is money. And that money, in my perspective, should buy you comfort, but also freedom, right? And it's you can reach comfort and freedom. I think you should be able to find a balance where you can reach your comfort and your freedom without fooling other people around you. And I think there's a lot of selling that just feels very fake, right? And this is
yeah,
what I feel.
and that's and you even said it when you had the proposition of the fund now, the
Hmm.
last year, that you could even be the face for this fund, but then you would not be practicing what you preach, right? So
Yeah.
for me, it's also this. I started to see that a lot of this, even these big names of wellness, they don't practice. They just want to sell you
No.
something, and
Yeah.
then they uh, uh, they are not
Even yeah.
though that
Even in
that
the
image
products that they
that
advocate.
they
Yeah.
sell. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. I also had, like, when I it, it was in the beginning of last year when I made all this decision in a conscious way of be more offline and of stop more social media, of saying no to certain things. I um I did some research, and I talked to some agencies, and I said, okay, what do I have to do to put my business working in a certain way? And I had this proposition of this company saying that, okay, we believe in your business. This is everything to work. There's nothing like this in Europe. We can do this, and this. But I had to completely, it's because I had to complete change the way that I present myself, the way that I speak, the what
Yeah.
I yeah, to sell myself in this way that I had.
And for some people it's fine. For some people, if they feel
Yeah,
they are comfortable with that, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there is
no,
absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think that at the end of the day, you have to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself who you
yeah,
are. What is the
but
skin
I
that you feel comfortable with?
I
Yeah.
reached the conclusion that I could not even do it, because I had to be
Mm.
like, record all these videos, record all these things, and okay, I said no, and then I opted for by the other way. Okay, I'm going
Yeah.
completely under the radar, and let's see how it works. And it worked for me. It worked for me. It worked.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that you should find a balance and you should share what you think it feels honest and true, and that's
yeah,
it. Yeah, but yes, it's true. It in today's days and age, it's difficult to have a reach and to have an impact um, if you don't sell your soul a little bit, at least in my perspective, right? And we were just not willing to do that, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think at the end of the day, when you look at Soft Bite podcasts, and we have I don't know dozens of hours of, or maybe hundreds
mm-hmm,
of
mm-hmm,
hours of
yeah,
conversations, that when someone is struggling in dentistry or in this field or opening a practice, I think they will be very helpful conversations. And even during the course, I'm very proud of what we did because it was always from a very honest point of view, and this is
yeah,
something that makes me very proud. And we never know, in the future we may come back to have these conversations. Let's see. But for now, I think it's a perfect timing to close this cycle, at least for now. And I would also like to thank you very much, because you have helped me a lot in these conversations, because when you talk and when you teach, of course, you also learn. And for me, it was when we stopped doing this as regularly, I really felt there was something missing, and it was my monthly or weekly conversation sometimes that we have doing the podcast. So thank you so much. I think the podcast has made me a better leader as well, because when you put out there what you believe, then you cannot go back and not practice what you preach. And it really helped me a lot in my practice, because when you think out loud, as we did here, it just clarifies your ideas, and even the selling of the practice, the way that it went. And I'm very proud of being able to be a part of this. And so thank you so much, Manuel. It's been great, really.
Thank you. Thank you. The same. I also want to thank you because I learned a lot. For me, it was really when I met you and when I heard you speaking on your on the lecture that you gave, and that then we after that we put together the the leadership course. It really it for me it was really really one of the things that I when I look back in my
Hmm.
professional career, one of the most enlightening moments, because I
Oh, that's sweet.
saw you put in place, and that you have done something that I used to teach in theory, in the theoretical part and the emotional part. I talked about that, but you done it in the in the field with success, and I will always remember that moment. And thank you so much, because it was a real pleasure to learn with you, and to hear you thinking out loud. And yes, you're right. I think that sometimes we have all these things in our head, but when we express them and when we hear them, and sometimes when we hear the other person saying it in different words, because I felt that I felt that you expressed some of the things that I think in a very clear way. I think you have that gift of making things simpler, and in a very practical way to apply those things. So thank you so much. It was a really really
Well, I
real
tried.
pleasure. And
I wouldn't say
like
if
I
it's
said,
success, but I tried. Yeah.
every time I feel very energized. I feel very this good feeling, and I think that's what you should feel. And the reason why now we are stopping, it's not because not because it feels bad or it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It was just a natural thing,
Yeah.
like we were saying. So for now it makes sense to stop. I think that also you are in this very interesting um part of your career. You're discovering yourself now as
Yeah.
Jorge André, dentist, not the practice owner, just George
Yeah.
André, the dentist, the teacher. You have a lot of more free time. I think you're going to do wonderful things.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see that, and I'm always here if you need. And we are always
Of
here
course.
also for the colleague
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
wants to reach out, and if we can help. um but it's not a goodbye. It's just for now.
Yes.
uh we're going to stop, but who knows, we are going always going to be here.
Exactly. Yeah, and let me know when you come to Portugal to catch up, to have a coffee and have a conversation, okay?
For sure. Yeah. We'll
Okay,
see.
that's it. That's a wrap for at least this part of the podcast. This is the last episode. I feel very comfortable with. I think it's the right thing to do at this point. And if you guys ever want to reach us or talk to us or just let us know. You have, like I was saying, you have dozens, sometimes maybe hundreds of hours of conversations of very important topics that we covered. And I wish that when I start the practice, I could go to YouTube or to Spotify and listen to what we have just talked. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And that's it. We'll see you around.
Thank you so much for listening. And yes, we'll see. We'll see you around. Bye bye, Jorge André.
Bye bye.